Forbes Books presents Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth with David Radlow. Transformation for a new and better world. Here's David.
My guest this week is Jack Derby. Jack is a longtime professor of the practice in entrepreneurship, marketing, and sales at Tufts University and M.I.T. He is chair emeritus of Derby Entrepreneurship Center. He's been at the helm at several companies and startups. In the 1990s, he founded Derby Management, a consulting firm specializing in strategic business planning and revenue growth. Jack, welcome to the podcast.
David, great to be here. Great to reconnect. Look forward to talking with you and listening to your wisdom.
That's fabulous. Before we get to the landmark endowment that you and your wife, Jan, bestowed, wanted to focus in a bit on your competitive advantage in both teaching to students and consulting at Derby Management. Your landmark method used in the science of sales to accelerate growth and maximize performance. For those that are unaware of what the science of sales is, could you kindly explain what the deliverables are to both students and clients? Many that take your weekend seminars that learn from what used to be a strictly art form of selling into a science with accelerated, measurable results.
Dave, appreciate the comment and the opportunity to talk about what today is an absolute science, not just in sales at the bottom of the funnel, but also in marketing. So if you think about it, we, Dave, you, me, people around us, we get about 6,500 marketing messages a week. And at the end of those 5 days, we remember less than 50. That's because previously, this was just the term I learned in business. Throw the spaghetti against the wall. We'll see what sticks. And that was then marketing. And as sales guys would pick up the spaghetti that stuck to the wall and charge forward and treat everybody the same. So the very good news is over the last 8 or 9 years, all of that has become deep science. And over the last 2 years, it's become more and more. And in this world of 2020, 2021, it is the way that sales and marketing is. And it's extraordinarily exciting. So knowing that as a practitioner in my consulting business, and we've been at this for a long time, I thought I would introduce that thought process into both my marketing course at Tufts and my sales course at Tufts, and also into the courses I teach in business planning at M.I.T. So that was the thought process, David. And to make it interesting, so what we do is content in context. I can bring, and David, you can bring, because of your background, we can bring content to students, just the same way you learned it as an undergraduate, I did. The problem with that is most of it's forgotten. So what we teach is bringing content, the teaching of sales, the teaching of marketing to students, and we wrap them around real companies. So my students received, this is now end of July, and they received their syllabuses for the fall on July 5th, both for the marketing course and the sales course. They received with those syllabuses, they had 5 days to select companies. The company projects were given to them, and they're now working this summer, preparing for September 8th and 9th to kick it off. My point there is the context is real companies, typically smaller companies, but not raw startups. Dave's, your company at Eggland will be a perfect example, a growth company that has grown very nicely, and you provide us, hypothetically, with a sales project, and we will deliver that sales project every week until the end of the semester 13 weeks later. So that's the real world. We deliver projects. That's the content delivered to the context of the customer. And the exciting part is that these company managers, typically the CEO or VP of sales or VP of marketing, they grade 40% of the course. So it's real life for these men and women. Typically, they're juniors and seniors. So a long explanation, but this content and context, gee, I wish I'd learned that when I was going to undergraduate school or even in graduate school, quite frankly.
You are known for assembling the best teams to solve business issues in corporations. And every semester, your classes are not only oversubscribed, but they're also the demand for your experiential teams based project management services. Could you explain what the deliverables are for the companies and how that directly helps them accelerate growth?
Let me take a step back. I went to undergraduate school, went to Boston College, and went overseas for 3 years in the Peace Corps. And I came back and I had, like most students, no idea of what I wanted to do. And by luck, I got into a large corporation, company called Becton Dickinson, right at the time of analog to digital change. I mean, it was a revolution in product development. And I had a very, very low level job as an expediter on the manufacturing floor. My point in that is I learned from the best. I learned from consultants, I learned from my bosses, and it was an extraordinary time to be in business. It was the revolution of the first integrated circuits. That kind of says I'm an older guy. So, looking at that and seeing that rapid revolution, actually, interesting word, revolution of what happened in business, and seeing consultants add to that. I was at Becton Dickinson for a total of, it gets a little confused because I and some other people, we bought the divisions out. But I was at Becton Dickinson and the resulting companies for about 17 years. And then I went into management consulting. And I said one thing, this is going to be real world stuff. I understand visions, I understand mission. In very few of those companies do those words become real. Now, what I set out to do at Derby Management is to bring real life tactical plans to the David Radlows of the world, to the people who are running big companies, who are doing startups. And I said it would be tactical. We'd give them business plans, but they wouldn't be 5-year business plans. They wouldn't be 10-year visionary plans. They would be 1 year, maybe 2 quarters worth. And so that's what Derby Management has done, tactical delivery of operating plans, of sales plans, marketing plans. Then we spin that circle, we spin that dial. And that's exactly what happens in my work at MIT and most importantly at Tufts is the same type of thing. Bring things down to a useful level. I understand consulting. I understand strategy consulting. I've done multi-billion-dollar companies. I've done tiny companies. But if the most impactful is if I can deliver tactical, real things. How do you sell? How do you make money? How do you market? And at the end of the day, I always joke about this, Dave, to be really successful, you got to sell something. So that's, again, the emphasis here is on tactics.
Jack, I'm going to challenge you because we go way back to when it was, let's say, an art form, and then you changed, or others as well, but you encapsulated the art form of selling to say, I'm not the greatest salesperson in the world, but if I follow scientific principles, I can at least perform, if not outperform, the greatest salesperson that does the art form. Could you kindly just go into that?
I think that's a great question, Dave, because I grew up on the manufacturing floor as an expediter, working in the purchasing department. And by luck and hard work, I walked up the ladder in the purchasing department. I got to be head of manufacturing. I got to be head of operations. I got to run engineering. And so all in that process, I learned what? Process, tools, technology, math, metrics. We built medical products. We built FDA approved products. We weren't allowed to experiment. In that process, I said, gee, that works here in engineering and in manufacturing. By luck, I got to be promoted to be president of that division and actually executed a buyout of that division and some other hardware divisions out of Becton Dickinson, great company. So at that point, now I'm president, and I said, shoot, I don't know anything about sales. That was always black mystery to me. So with that background of process tools, technology, and math, I said, Why don't we bring that to the sales group? Why don't we make it more scientific? Well, that didn't go over so well. But inch by inch, we changed that. And so introduce the early concepts of making marketing a science, not just throwing spaghetti against the wall, because huge amounts of money were being spent in marketing. Not so today. And also in sales. All right, let's fast forward a couple of decades. And about 10 years ago, I wish I could remember the date, there was the cover article of Harvard Business Review. And it didn't say the science of sales, but it said words akin to the science of sales. And I said, we've arrived. So that was about 10-ish years ago. We've been practicing the science part of marketing and sales for 15, 20 years. And that article gave me, at least my head, authority. Fast forward to today. Sure, there's an art of sales, David. You and I have a relationship. And it's better for me if I had a relationship with a Radlow with a background. It would, pave the way a little bit. But gone are the days of relationship is the only art of selling. Gone are the days of what we, refer to as Joey Bag of Donuts. I'm going to stop by the hospital. I'm going to bring some donuts, and I'm going to sit down and have a cup of coffee. Those days are gone forever because nobody has any time. So if I treat the individual on that other side of the table, on the Zoom call, on the phone call, and say, how would you like to be sold, Mr. Radlow? And that's what happens today. So there is that art form, David. Hopefully I'm a semi-comfortable person to work with. But today, it's all about the other side of the table, not about my side. It's not about my products. It's about the value I can bring, the other side of the table, and I'm going to market and sell the way the customer, the persona on that other side of the table, way they want to be marketed and sold to. So that revolution is about the science. But you're absolutely correct, David. You've got to have an art to that. You have to have a likable person. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I'm focusing in on this because you've got it and down as you focus in terms of how they actually present, how they actually introduce themselves, how they actually the company follows up, and how they take the leads through the process of a customer relationship tool to the ability to castigate and bring forth the net, and how you actually do every little detail in the process in order to manage the prospects, manage the customers, and then manage and maximize your category growth. And if you could use that in order to expand on that kind of detail to give the listener an idea of exactly what kind of level of detail goes into this.
Yeah, you got to get down to the 1 inch off the ground. You got to get your fingers in the crankcase oil today, fingers deep in the dirt. I'm a Vermonter, so I talk about being out in the garden and digging in the dirt. And you've got to be able, I don't care whether your title is salesperson or a BDR, a business development rep, or you're the executive vice president of the chief whatever. Today, and the ability of process tools technology allows you to do that, to see everything that's going to impact that customer. Let's come back to the underlying factor here. Dave, you don't have any time. I don't have any time. Nobody has any time today. And so as a salesperson, a marketing exec, I've got to be most appreciative of the inflexibility of time. If I cloud that up with a lot of messages that you never wanted to see, if I'm just spamming you, God forbid, even if I have got identified emails, but I'm just sending them out randomly. They're being accepted, but nobody's looking at them. What a waste. Waste on my resources, that would be efficiency. Terrible waste on the person at the other side of that table. When I say table, obviously physical table, sure, but Zoom screen, inbox, whatever. So if I can deliver messages to the personas, the people, real human beings who identify the type of people I'd like to market and sell to. Wouldn't that be very efficient? Now, also, if I can assist that person, I'm going to give you an example in a moment. If I can assist that person into giving them stuff that they would like to have to make themselves or themselves in their business go better, work better, get more sales, get better marketing, get better products, wouldn't that be very cool? So again, we bring down to the personas. We can, and everybody who is listening to this, David, understands how they are, and I mean this in a positive way, targeted or identified by social media, if in fact they're on social media. Let's not think of that as a bad thing. So bring that back to the B2B world. I can identify the individuals to whom I would sell. Therefore, I can market to them. They can opt out. I can give them content. I can give them information that would be of value to their business. So it's no longer about my products or in my case, my consulting services for me and my team. It is, can I bring them value? Can I increase their productivity, their salespeople? Yep. But it's no longer valuable to say, hey, I can increase the productivity of my salespeople. That's like a so what? Who cares? But if I were to say, I can increase the productivity of your salespeople by approximately 25 to 30% in a period of 9 months, that might get me a, hey, could you tell me more about that? Rather than a so what? So all of those tools, all of those abilities, Dave, are with us today that I can focus on what's really important. How can I bring value to that person, that decision maker in their company?
Thank you very much for that and getting to that level of detail. In teaching and running the department, you've always known to get the best guest lecturers and outside certified coaches to help students accelerate growth.
Yeah,
Could you comment on the importance of outside guests and learning
yeah,
in order to maximize accelerated learning and performance?
absolutely. And I'm getting a little chill when I'm talking to you, David, because you're one of those people who I've asked to come in and talk about that. So first, a point of clarity. Within the Derby Entrepreneurship Center, that is the renamed Entrepreneurship Center at Tufts, I am a board member of that, along with about 30 other men and women. I am a professor of the practice within that. I no longer run the center. I stepped down from that 2.5 years ago because of health reasons on the basis of my wife, and Elaine Chen became the director. So I just want to clarify, I no longer run the center. I did write a big check a couple of weeks ago. Jan and I did. So we did that out of love for Tufts. But I just do want to clarify, Elaine Chen, wonderful person. She is the director of the Derby Entrepreneurship Center. And I am one of the, I think there are 14 or 16 professors who teach within that. Just wanted to clarify that. But you are a perfect example of that. So if I'm going to teach entrepreneurship, there are 6,000 universities in the United States, around 900 who have business schools. Tufts does not. We have incredible schools, 11 of them, but we don't have a business school. So we teach entrepreneurship. Within my entrepreneurship center, there are professors of finance, there are professors of marketing, of sales, of computer science. We cover a plethora of those activities. So imagine now what would be a better situation. I could get up, even in my content and context structure, and work with my 36 students in both courses and talk to them. That's pretty cool. But now the impact on those young men and women, juniors and seniors, a little bit of grad students, that if I brought in a Tufts alum. So in both of my courses, what's exciting now is to bring in people like you, Dave, who are real entrepreneurs, and in your case, Dave, selling a consumer-oriented product, which is even more impactful, even in a B2B focus. So if I can introduce Tufts people, I want that young woman, that young man to look up and say, oh, gee, wow, I could do that. Or why couldn't I do that? The additional benefit of that is I introduce them to these lecturers, and I'm going to give you an example in a moment, and I would, and let's assume that's how actually I started at MIT. I was asked by the department head to come in and lecture, and then fell in love with the whole process. But if I introduce them to Tufts alums who sat in those seats maybe 10 years prior, 5 years prior, 20 years prior, that individual will also spend some time with that young person and answering questions of, gee, how do I break into sales? How do I break into finance? How do I do that? That's part of the shtick. And I think that's incredibly important and, quite frankly, a responsibility of the alums who want to get involved. And that's been a magic formula in my marketing class this semester. There are 7 outside lecturers coming in terms of marketing. All of them now are around 28, 30. They all came out of my course. And now they hold positions of vice president of marketing, of director of marketing. So it's very important. I think it's kind of like a responsibility of any lecturer.
While you're teaching, you not only talk the talk, but you also walk the walk. Your courses in sales and marketing draw on your decades of experience, spanning 9 startups and leadership roles at multiple companies. Why do you think students get so much of someone who's been in the trenches that is a grinding executor of all things revenue and people process strategy in order to accelerate growth?
I don't apologize for this statement anymore. This is what I love to do. I work. I run the firm. I'm actually doing, hopefully, we're just launching it now. We've been working on it for a few years. My 10th startup. We're out fundraising right now. This is what I do. I love working. Therefore, I love teaching. It's all meshed together. And I think it's very important. And I'm not suggesting everybody should do that. I have a very loving wife who allows me to do that. But if I can walk the talk in terms of entrepreneurship, and I can say, well, let me tell you about fundraising. Here's how you do it. Or read my book, and that tells you something. And then demonstrate there's nothing easy about fundraising. There's nothing easy about starting a company. You know that, David. But in the fundraising mode, when you're doing so, to talk about it in history, that's pretty cool. I've had some successes. I've had some miserable failures about my startups. But now in the real world of looking for this $5 million round is what we're going after. And being able to bring that back, and talk about those non-confidential things and how one goes about that to an entrepreneur. I think that's real life. And, one of the things that I get out of Tufts and out of MIT, but let's focus directly on Tufts. One of the things I learn, no BS here, I learn as much as I get. The coursework that I'm putting together in this summer, I would say, and that's for the fall semester, obviously, I would say 40% of that is obsolete for the spring semester. That integration of me as an entrepreneur, me as a consultant running the 10-person consulting firm, me as a professor gets smushed all together. It just makes me a better educator. And quite frankly, again, I use that phrase. I learn as much as I get out of every semester.
That's wonderful, quite interesting, and something to learn from. Well, hang on, Jack. We have to stop right here. But coming up in the second part of my conversation with Professor Jack Derby from Tufts University and MIT and the founder of Derby Management, Jack talks about the importance of continuing education.
Everybody needs to continue to learn. In a classroom, that would be ideal. Online, of course, it's so easy. By yourself, sure, why not, as long as you're disciplined. And never accept that you know enough.
To connect with David, go to davidradlow.com. David's book, Principles of Cartel Disruption, Accelerate and Maximize Performance, is now available wherever books are sold. This has been Sustainable Leadership and Disruptive Growth with David Radlow, a presentation of Forbes Books.